Good morning, everybody. We can still say Happy New Year. It's still very much in order. After all, it's the week of the New Year. Glad to join you all, and good to be alive on this day, no matter what. I'm Train Belunaso. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
You know, every day should be celebrated, whether it's the dawn of a new year or not. It's a new day.
True.
And it's always a beginning to start. And who says? They say when you wake up is your morning. So
There you go.
If you finally feel like it's a new year on the 2nd or the 3rd of January, Happy New Year.
Uh-huh.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. My name is Maokwe Ogunyusu.
Well, it's a good one at least. It's a Happy New Year. And yes, Marco, you're right. So Happy New Day to you. January 3, 2023. I'm Ayo Makinde. Welcome to the show.
Well. You know, it's density. Yes, it's an election year. So we expect a lot from all of those who are promising all sorts of things to see what they can do to ensure you and I, our lives are a lot better. I know several people already have their plans in terms of what they want to do before, during, or after the elections, whichever part of the world they're going to find themselves. But back home here, there's certain things that you'll expect to get a lot better. In terms of our lives, I mean, I know that I don't know how many of you just keeping tabs on developments in Lagos, Abuja, different parts of the world, especially when it's got to do with development. I know that only recently Lagos was talking about how they're putting in place measures, this new rail tracks, and then that big caveat, caution, the rail tracks will be electrified. So a lot of people have got to be careful. If not, everyone has to be careful how you conduct yourself around those areas. But we have also seen this unfortunate scenario. I know they say old habits die hard. You know, when you do certain things and, you know, you've been used to doing things in a certain way, chances are that even when they then tell you, you need to change your approach to these things because it could cost you your life, you may take it with a pinch of salt because you might have that mental struggle to shoot because it's human nature, really, and the theory is several that explain that kind of scenario. But I'm not sure I can say the same thing for what went on in Abuja here, incidentally. Unfortunately, too, it turned out that a lady, you may have seen that report at some point in time, who unfortunately died while she was just trying to make her way to her residence via the rail crossing that spanned through their community, which they say, look, that rail track met the community there. So, but for those kind of families, you know that proverb where it says, look, somebody else's corpse might be just like a log of wood to you. So whatever people say about this kind of scenario, of course, that family will take it a lot differently. But there has to be a lot of things. We expect a lot of things to happen in terms of introspection on the part of the authorities, the kind of rules and regulations or signages or measures, preventive measures they put in place in those areas, in and around those areas, to ensure that people know how hazardous it is while making use of those areas. So it's something we've talked about here time and again, especially when it has to do with outskirts, how governments usually they play the catch-up because residents move to those areas, they develop those areas, and much later, you know, you just find some sort of development or government eventually catching up with those areas and trying to put certain things in place. So, look, there are just several perspectives to all of this, but first and foremost, our hearts go out to the family. They lost their loved ones, so it's not always easy at any point in time to relate with those kind of scenarios, but it's a touching story, I tell you, and a pretty good report by Emperor Simon.
Oh, Chamberlain, I really wish that, you know, we would start on let's say a different note, maybe a happier note. But, you know, let me ask you, do you have any New Year resolutions?
Well, I actually don't resolve. I just have goals and plans. So if they fall under that category of resolutions, fine, because chances are, if you fail in some of those regulations, you failed again. But just set those goals, and then remember, I apply the principle of one extra thing. every day to achieve your goal. Don't lump too much. Just one extra thing. You know the principle they use in football. Onto the next game. Even though you lose the last one or you win the last one, it goes down memory lane, you're on to the next game. Tunnel vision focus. I think that helps.
And I think that, you know, if you were to apply that to this particular situation, I mean, as you said, there's some things that we should leave with the old year. Sadly, there's some things that will still continue into this year. There are things that we hope that we do better this year, and this will be one of them. We saw late last year the death of this lady who we understand was a journalist working with NTA. We also saw late in the year, I mean, as a matter of fact, Christmas Day, the killing of Mrs. Bolanle Rahim. I mean, I think that was so important. The president had to put it because it was something that we had. It was something that we had spoken about here on the station. We had talked about it. The NSAS movement was something that, you know, really shook Nigeria. At least, is it 2 years now or 3 years ago? I'm not even.
How time flies.
Yeah, how time flies, because last year was 2022. That was in 2021 when we had the NSAS protest, sometime around October. It's almost 2 years already, and, you know, just when we're still talking about it and wondering, you know, what will happen, we see another incident, another needless death. So we really hope that some things will change this year. Safety will be one of the things that we will be a little more conscious of. We would apply thoughts, not just for ourselves, but for fellow human beings. I'll give you a story, Jim Lane. Once, I remember I was quite young. Myself and my mom I didn't grow up in Lagos. Lagos is home, where I come from, where I hail from, but I didn't grow up there. So we used to make visits to Lagos. It was the first time, maybe in a long time, we had made a visit to Lagos without using our car. And we came by public transport, and we got off, I think it was around Ojota. I don't remember now if there were, yes, I think it was a head-over bridge, a pedestrian bridge, for you to cross over to the other side. I think we're going, I can't remember where we're going to, the name of the place. And people were crossing on the road. I remember still being, I was not so young, because I'd finished school, I'd finished secondary school. And I remember, you know, my mom trying to help us cross the road. And I pointed to the pedestrian bridge because I thought it was insane, you know, for us to try and cross the road. There are some things that really, when you live outside of Lagos, it is to Lagos, there is this initial shock. They can't understand certain things. They can't understand why you have to run after public transport, for instance. They can't understand, because in other states, the public transporters wait for you. They can't understand why there are no paddings on the seats, the public transport buses, because in Lagos, the seats are mostly wooden. I mean, there are a lot of things that are just not normal. They are not normal. I know that things are changing now. With the public transportation system that the Lagos State government is trying to put in place. And maybe even transporters are beginning to recognize that things need to change. I mean, Lagos is going to be what they make of it. I hope that mentality is sinking in. But I still remember as an 18-year-old or 17 to 18-year-old, you know, going to Lagos, and not for the very first time, you know, taking a personal car, going by public transport. It was a real mental shock. And adjusting while I was in school, it was a lot of things to, you know, to cope with. But hey, here I am. I'm a true Lagosian in every sense of the word. Nonetheless, while we get to all of this, used to all of this madness, there's certain things that are really not normal and need to change. And I think that, you know, the Lagos State government has its work cut out for it. The National Rail Corporation, is it National? Is
NRC.
NRC, they have their work cut out for them. Lagos State government has assured Nigerians, because it's not only Lagosians who will be using that rail, there'll be people who will be coming to Lagos for the very first time. They have put safety measures in place to ensure that nobody gets electrocuted. But we've also seen people go and willfully remove barricades, pull them down. That sort of attitude needs to change. I hope that when people do that, they realize that they're endangering the lives of other people. And if people are caught doing that sort of thing, I think that they should not just be charged for vandalization. They should also be charged for attempted manslaughter. It means that you intend for someone to die. That's why you're removing that. You know, that's on the one hand. And then the NRC, then there needs to be questions raised as to whether or not there was actually a barricade put in place in that community, knowing that it is now an active rail track. Do we have, I mean, we have places where roads cross the rail line. And, you know, when that happens, there is a barricade put in place when a train is coming. That road is closed. Yeah. You cannot pass, you cannot cross until the train has passed.
Standard practice.
Did they have that in place? If they didn't have that in place, then it's time for them to, one, look at all of the places where either communities have made makeshift roads or where roads truly cross the rail line, and for them to put those barricades in place. And there needs to now be new education, because we cannot lose another life this year based on what it is that we have seen. You know, it has already happened. This unfortunate accident has happened. I mean, family has lost not just a breadwinner, a partner, a mother, somebody to nurture, someone into the future. That sort of accident, this sort of accidents are avoidable. So let us hope that as we're going into the new year, that some new resolutions will follow us, which will include to reduce the number of accidents that can stop. You know, accidental shooting is something that can stop. It needs not to happen. Dying by rail accident is something that can stop. We really can reduce it. Dying even by road accidents is something that we've almost given up on. But I don't think that we need to throw our hands up in the air. These are I was just thinking about it on my way to work. I said, you know, much as when we're growing up, you know, we used to pray. We didn't used to pray so much about security. We used to thank God for life a lot, because we know that when we travel, it is usually your heart is in your mouth, because you don't know how the next person is driving. And accidents was one of the things that really took the lives of people. Now, of course, people are talking about kidnappers, etc., and that's something you really have to pray against. But this was our reality, and it's still a reality. While you're also praying against kidnappers now, you still have to be praying against drivers that could be drunk or, you know, who are driving anyhow. But these are not the kind of things that, you know, we should throw up our hands and say it's always been like that, so will it forever be? No. Let us ask, what are some of the changes that we can make in this regard so that the number of people that we lose, you know, to this sort of avoidable incidents, you know, are really on the down low for the year 2023, even as we look forward to an election. Ayo.
Avoidable accidents, and I think that's the hallmark of it, Malpe. Just the same way the NSARS was avoidable, because the build-up to it lasted 5 years. And by the way, you know, 2021 was 1 year after the NSARS, because the way I clock it in my head is 2010-20. October 2020, and you know, 1 year after was 2021, which you mentioned. You know, so well, the president mentioned all of that in his speech, and that is all about that. But one thing, talking about the specific issue of this rail accident that occurred, Markwe, again, I mean, I love the fact that at least you pointed to the fact that we have a responsibility to play as a people, but then government has to do what it needs to do. Growing up, whenever you wanted to cross, whether you're driving or walking, the interchange, the rail line somewhere around Yaba, there are two, you know, I don't know what to call them, barricades on the road, on the one side and on the other side. A bell will cling like a number of times, like 5-10 times, to let you know a train is coming on either side. There is a yellow light, there is a red light, and then there is the blaring horn of the train line were smooth for cars to drive over. The one that we saw on that road where the fatal accident happened is clearly not level. So cars have to slow down to go over it like some lump on the road. And we know the way women drive, they're extremely careful. They will slow down, they will ensure that they do the needful per time. How loud, if ever, was that noise of the train? Was there a notice? Someone just reminded me, and it is the truth, that there's usually timing for trains to pass. Do we still have those timings? And there are so many questions to ask. And if we are going to do the things that we need to do, then the infrastructure that will support the basic infrastructure of rail lines need to come back. so that we do not continue to sing this same song over and over again. There are so many things that are avoidable. So many things that are avoidable. If the barricades were not there and cars have to cross that line, then there needs to be some precautionary measures that government need to put in place. They were there before, they should be back there. If they were never there at this particular one, then government most certainly, and the officials responsible, have questions to answer. Chamberlain.
Well, you couldn't say any further on that one, but yeah, we'll always keep our focus on that one. And those perhaps are some of the matters that we will focus on here today. But just stay with us. We will be right back.
This is what they call 21st century. When my customer say I want to use POS, I will just bring out my phone, open the application, use this, press this code. I don't have anyone that using POS anymore.
Welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies here today. This Nigeria happens to be the first one, and well, following through on what the statement, the letter from former President Obasanjo, still generating reactions. Look at that. Buhari hits Obasanjo over dismal rating of his government. You are frustrated. Presidency responds. In 7 years, we've moved from frying pan to fire, from mountaintop to the valley. Ex-President's New Year letter. More fireworks over Obi's endorsements. And so, yeah, that's what you see right here.
The pictures they always use, very interesting. You would think that that's really how the president, responded. And that's how his face was when he was writing his own response.
Whatever they can do to make you understand or get a graphic picture of the story, they would do it to lend get your ears or get your attention on that one. So that's a big lead on the front page here today. Beneath that one, 1/3 of world economy to be in recession this year. IMF warns again. So I hope, because we get to hear some persons in different authorities here, when you ask them certain questions of the economy, the performance in their area, what they ought to have done, they tell you, well, it's a global thing. Very escapist, I tell you, because when they were vying for those scenarios, they won't tell you, look, if it's global, they will say, we will fix every possible problem. But now you get to see that one. Imo, you see gunmen attack ex-Governor Hakim's convoy, kill 4 policemen. Oh, another scenario there against security. Bolanle Lagos Command redeploys DPO officers, men out of Ajiwa Police Station. So, look, this scenario, it just looks intractable, because we always hear them say, when certain things happen, things like this, or police misbehave on the roads, that the DPOs are usually aware. In fact, you heard some persons behind the quarters saying, accusing the IGP's office and the public relations offices concerning those policemen that are usually disciplined, saying, why are you trying to undo us, the DPOs? But it cannot be business as usual. So I think that should be standard practice now. If any of those officers misbehave on the roads or found wanting, the DPOs not only could be queried, answer for it, when you start from that area, when they know that they will be held accountable, no matter whose oxes go, maybe, just maybe, you may begin to get them behave properly. Because after all, what happens to all those rumors that they tell you? They make returns to the DPOs. That's this Nigeria.
Well, this Nigeria, I'm going to be looking at another paper for you. Daily Trust is the paper I'm looking at this morning. And they're focusing on an issue which came from last year. It's not over until it's over. 17 days after release, scarcity of new Naira notes.
There you go.
Worries Nigerians. Most ATMs dispensing old notes. Hawkers of new notes making brisk business. So, here we go again. You know, how we never see mint, what we call mint here, brand new currency. We never see them in the banks. But, you know, just go to a party, you'll see one woman or man standing outside, you know, willing to exchange your dirty old notes for you, for brand new ones for you to spray at a party. How that is happening, we're unsure. But I think that the CBN does have a responsibility to ensure that these notes are available where they need to be available. They have a responsibility to break that racket, if it's a racket. Because I know how hard I was searching for this. I wanted to be able to put in the offering box brand new notes. New
That's a good feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah, new Naira notes. You know, but that was just hard work this season. We made do with what we got. I mean, at least we were able to get a 10,000 Naira somewhere, and that was all. You know, the rest of it were old notes. So much as, yes, we want to go cashless, there are still some scenarios. A tip there, what's the name, small change here. You would need notes. So where are these notes? I think it's something that the CBN will need to look into. The Daily Trust is making that its lead headline this morning. Hawkers, I already read that, hawkers of new notes making brisk business. Wherever it is that those people are hawking the notes, you know, they need to be found out and asked, what is their source? That is, if we do not know their source already. Obasanjo attacks leaders out of frustration. That story is also still there. It's from the presidency. You have just beneath the nameplate there, 2023 NSCIA seeks protection for Muslims in Southeast. Discos earn 1.3 trillion Naira from electricity bills in 23 months. Thank God that they actually said electricity bill, so you don't think it's a disco where you go to dance. No, it's not from the festivities. It's electricity distribution companies. Yeah, I do not know what's going on, but I kind of think that, again, there's been another increase. It's been a very surreptitious increase on maybe electricity bills. It's right there. If you stare at your electricity bill, well, especially if you're using prepaid meters, you might just get to see maybe it's a slight rise. But if they're earning money and they're giving you, you know, value for money, then maybe there's no need to complain at all.
If being the clause there, operational word.
Of course. If 1.3 trillion Naira from electricity bills, I'm sure they're doing something to ensure that they're ramping up what they earn. 4 police orderlies feared killed as Hakim's convoy bombed. Oh dear. Somewhere.
Something traumatic for him. So it was with his family.
Yes.
So anybody will be traumatized, clearly. So it's really unfortunate, the kind of things we read and hear and see these days in different parts of the country. So you know, you just shudder and wonder why it appears everyone, we're all to ourselves, fortunately. So what a sad scenario.
So while on the one hand, you know, we really do hope and that, you know, we don't see actual judicial killings by police, scenarios like this, where policemen lose their lives while they're providing protection for VIPs or providing protection for whoever it is they're providing protection, or it could be even ordinary Nigerians, we sincerely hope that their family members, are well taken care of, and that, what is due them, the kind of scenarios that will make them desperate, those kinds of scenarios are, also taken care of, so that, these officers do not just die in vain, they're human beings at the end of the day, and all they're trying to do is not just make a living, but also keep their country members safe. So, really, condolences to the Nigerian police over the death of its men and officers. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
The Nigerian Tribune is next this morning, and what do you have on the front page? Yes, if you guessed that it's the Obasanjo letter, you are right. Obasanjo frustrated, jealous of Buhari presidency, says, and a whole load of riders, as previously mentioned in other papers, on the front pages of other papers. But look below the picture on the front page, labeling CBN Governor terrorism sponsor shameful. That's ascribed to Southern and Middle Belt leaders. Advised Buhari to put his house in order. Find the story on the inside, and they demand DSS DG's sack. All of that loaded on the inside pages of the paper this morning. About the nameplate, INEC is repeating its statement, those buying PVCs are wasting their time. But there is this interesting one right beside the picture. Terrorists killed 470, sacked dozens from farms in Katsina in last 3 years. That's ascribed to maize farmers. Question that we should be asking is, how does that affect us? Well, you may want to find out the details on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. That's the Nigerian Tribune today.
On to Daily Times next, and after Obasanjo's endorsement of Peter Obi, LP, Wike, mock Atiku, Tinubu, others for crying foul. And then look at the riders now. As Obasanjo's endorsements, they sweet us, now pain, they paint them, says LP. So that's
that song again. That notorious song.
Just vernacular of saying, look, one man's meat is another's poison. While these people are upset, certain other people are really excited about it in local parlance. So, and then look at the riders. The second one, if your principal can't recommend you, then there's something fundamentally wrong. Wike taunts Atiku. And then the last of which is, Melaye replies, Wike accuses Rivers governor of disrespect, unwarranted insult on ex-VP. So make of that what you will. Beneath that list, you've got morally squalid Obasanjo attacks leaders out of frustration, presidency. Says ex-president, look at that, destabilized internal democracy by orchestrating impeachment of governors who opposed his imperial administration. So you have all sorts of things just making the rounds here. So we're hoping that, anyway, they should be reminded of the Electoral Act, the rules of the Electoral Act, how even the phrases, the language, they're expected to be a lot more civil, because some of them could border on violation of the Electoral Act depending on how they conduct themselves. It's a pretty different rule now, so they might need to be aware of that one. That is Daily Times this morning.
And leadership has this, unsettled by Obasanjo's letter, presidency hits back, says ex-president represents dark days of Nigeria's democracy, can't stand a better leader. Campaign councils trade words over content of letter. Opposition jittery over signs of my victory. That's according to Tinubu. You find all of the details, all of the political details on page 4 of the paper. I didn't frustrate zoning of PDP ticket to South. That's according to Wike. Nobody can stop election in Southeast, IPOB declares. That is also there. Ex-Imo governor escapes as gunmen kill 4 police orderlies. That is also there on the front page. Number of other stories on top of the nameplate. FIRS unveils instant tax clearance certificate. So if you pay your tax, you don't have to wait too long. Looks like you can get your tax clearance certificate instantly. Isn't that some good news? Well, some good news at least as you go into the new year. And you also see this convoy attack. Tambuwal vows to bring perpetrators to book. That is also on the front page of the paper. Lekki Port opens talk with liquid bulk terminals for phase 2 development. That is also there on the front page. And then I guess we'll leave it there for leadership newspapers.
The Guardian newspaper is next, and that's what you have on the front page. New year, high stakes for subsidy, inflation, insecurity. All of that is packed on the front page of the paper, and there's so much that you may want to look at there. And I mean, guys, you know, this is one of those things, most certainly one of those things that will make major headlines, you know, on the day, and the decisions that will be made today by many people who will be listening to and watching what is going to be happening. I look at the riders there. Deficit financing to hit 12 trillion naira amid unending borrowing. And there's that one. Fuel scarcity may worsen over future of subsidy, ban on Russian crude. Well, that's that on the front page. The lead story of the paper. Presidency attacks OBJ, says former president frustrated, jealous of Buhari's achievements. Right beside that one, those opposing Obasanjo's endorsement of Obi undemocratic, says Huriwa. Whatever that means, you find the details there and several others. Below the page, you have this one. CBN's short-term loans to banks drop to 11 trillion naira. If you want to know what it was before, the details are on the inside pages. And right under that one, still at the bottom of the page, telecoms operators activate 4.3 lines, seek cost-based tariff. The details of that find on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Telegraph then. Obasanjo attacking leaders out of frustration, ascribed to presidency, says he's envious of Buhari's record, insists ex-president's tenure darkest of nation's democracy. You get all of that. And then at the bottom strip, insecurity, military recovered over 380 AK-47 rifles, others in 3 months, ascribed to an investigation. 4 police escort killed as ex-Governor Hakim escapes death in Imo. Gunmen abduct Zamfara, retired army chief children. Southern Kaduna replaces annual festival with prayer summit. You also get to see that. So, well, there you go. That's New Telegraph, which ends a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
In about 65 days, Nigerians will be at the polls once again for an event that occurs once every 4 years. For many Nigerians, hopes are high as the Independent Electoral Commission are working earnestly to ensure that no Nigerian is disenfranchised in the general elections.
I actually went to Ikeja local government because that's where I registered, and they directed me here, and I just walked in and I collect not up to 10 minutes, and it's really nice.
The Electoral Commissioner walks our crew through the process for the collection of the permanent voters' cards. He then briefs on other important details in the process.
You just come, somebody will attend to you, pick up your slip, walk in here to the issuing desk officer. The desk officer checks if your name is in the register. Once your name is in the register, you take another step further, go and give it to the officer in charge of that particular area where you come from. The officer will now search the PU in that area. Once your PVC is found, he go back to you, call you to come and collect, sign and collect your PVC.
For those who showed up, the collection process was not as difficult as anticipated. They also give their thoughts on the mode of communication of details for collection of PVCs.
My own is transfer. So I went straight to the office and a lady collected it from my hands. I went to the office and searched it, and they bring the voter's card for me. So he didn't collect anything. Nobody bribed anybody to collect his voter's card.
No mobs, no, distractions, very peaceful. But the only thing I will just say is that it could have been better if there were text messages sent to individuals. The way you do when you want to collect your driver's license and all that, for a quick, as a reminder, and then for a precise or concise, direction.
As election days draw closer, political parties and their candidates vying for various positions have continued to urge Nigerians to pick up their PVCs, which is the only way voting is guaranteed. The collection process, INEC assures it has started and will continue to be seamless.
Welcome back. Yeah, Bishop Isaac Idahosa joins us next. He is the vice presidential candidate of the NNPP. He joins us virtually. Good morning, Bishop. Thank you for joining us today, and a Happy New Year to you today.
Happy New Year. Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, so just wondering, with all of these endorsements here, endorsement there, APC, PDP, LP, all going at each other. What's going on with the NNPP? Where are you? Aren't you concerned that, don't you need some endorsements yourself, NNPP, for instance?
Shockingly, we've had some endorsements here and there, but we don't want to make it open. Like I did mention earlier on last year, that it's a surprise package NNPP has got for Nigeria. And we've had prominent people that have endorsed us, and from the look of things, it's working. You see, most of the times when you hide your winning symbols or winning rules in life, you tend to have more results than exposing what is it that everybody is looking for. Now, endorsement comes when people believe in you, but then you see the electorates have got all the powers invested on them to be able to elect those ones their conscience is judging them aright to do. Now, if I mention to you a few that have endorsed us, you will marvel. And over time, you begin to see the manifestations of all I have been saying. We've been doing a whole lot. When Peter Obi is endorsed based on what the elder statesman, former president, said of track record, which we have even much more. Track record, he talked about track record, he talked about vision, character, and the physique. And these are the things, indeed, that must be found and seen in any leader as a very good attribute or quality. And my own principal, His Excellency, Dr. Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, has got all these in abundance. When you talk about track record, what he's been able to achieve, and is still on there as a very proper, peaceable legacy in Kano when he was two-time governor. You talk about vision. He's a visionary leader who's been able to see so much so to knowing enough that curbing insecurity has to do with education. That endeared a whole lot to him in Kano when he was able to mop up those who are out of school children, their marginaries, send them to school. They enjoy scholarship, not minding whether you're an indigene or a resident Kano, very detribalized, send them to go to tertiary schools to be able to acquire light. That's education. So this is a visionary leader. You talk about character that Obasanjo found in Obi. My leader, I've known him for almost a decade now. Very strong character man who is not compromised, not cowardized, not confused, a man of competence. And of course, when we talk about physics, a man who was once Minister of Defense, and till date, you can see that in him. Last week, he was able to tour Jigawa, Katsina, Zamfara, Kano, and Kebbi. And this is not the type of interstate state capital campaigning, going from nook and cranny, going grassroots, going local governments, wards, and then galvanizing votes,
Bishop.
and then enduring these manifestos to people. And yes,
Bishop, I don't think that anyone has really raised any issue about the integrity of your presidential candidate, but there are questions about whether or not he's really in the race to win. Oftentimes when we talk about the front runners, it's just sometimes that they include the NNPP for maybe what they think might be its disruptive tendencies. They do not think that it really has a very strong leg in terms of being able to, really make a mark, say, in all the geopolitical zones of the country. So when you talk about endorsements and you say, oh, your endorsements are going to their surprise package, they're still in secret. Endorsements are usually quite open. Endorsements are what is given so that other people can queue behind whoever it is that is given the endorsement. So why is it that your own endorsement is secret?
It's secret because there is time for manifestation, and the time is already here. And we'll begin to pull them out. That's why we have to overturn the results. Now, you see, it takes a mark to attract an eraser. Those who undermine us should go on ahead undermining us. Now, we are going to, and we have already started it. It's now 25th of February is already at the corner. You will call me back to say congratulations. And I know from what angle I'm saying this, from basis I'm saying this, what determines the election are the electorates. We are moved towards them, and we've been able to know what we've been able to achieve. We are in it. Again, Mark, we understand this clearly. We are in it to win it. Clarity is power. We can see beyond what you are saying based on our mapping out our movements and the cooperation of the mercies. And of course, the elites that want to see what we see. We are moving on, and we are spreading. From, like today, I'm on my way to Benin, from Benin to Delta, back to Katsina. So back to back. I mentioned that when we start. We're already on there, and we are in the ring. And not just that, anyone standing in the way will have himself to blame, in the sense that Nigerians know what they are looking out for. Not the propaganda you find around, not the social media thing you find around. It is that we are appealing to the common man.
Excuse me.
Sorry?
Are you disappointed that former President Olusegun Obasanjo didn't endorse your candidate, considering the fact that, he also worked with him? You talked about him being Minister of Defense, etc. This was under the Obasanjo administration. Are you disappointed that he did not endorse somebody whom he has worked directly with him, as his own choice for president this year?
No, I'm not disappointed. But it's just that one among 200 million people endorsing a candidate, and so many more will go out there to endorse those they want to endorse. He has the entitlement to endorse who he wants to endorse. Why will I be disappointed? The elder statesman, ex-former president, just got one vote to cast. And it depends on what that endorsement has to do, the impact it has to do on Peter Obi and Labour Party. But for us, NNPP, we are never disappointed. It's just another way to say, move on ahead, get courageous, and then get at the goal.
What are your permutations? Where are the areas where you are thinking that you would, win at least maybe 7? I know that you have to win 2/3, 25% in 2/3 of the country. But where are the places where you are thinking that you will be able to really make a mark and take a huge chunk of the votes in those states?
Well, look at the 19 states, northern states. No doubt for what we have done. Now, from today, we are moving towards the south. And that's where I'm heading towards now, after now. And to be able to galvanize 25%, 30%, as the case might be, we are the party to look out for. Why? Because our strategy is quite different from the north. We are penetrating and making our impacts known and looking forward to a time where opportunity will be given to the electorates to cast their votes. So we've been able to do a lot. Again, we are going to go into the normal one people use to measure success. That's the state capital campaign. That's not the strategy we deployed. We deployed going to the grassroots, the wards, local governments, and education. Now, it's now about time to begin to do the interstate capital campaign that people are used to. You see, when you are used to what you are used to, you will not be used to how it should be. So with this deployment of strategy, by the time it culminates into the massive gathering of voters for people to see, then they'll begin to change their minds. So the southern part is going to feel our weight now, just like the northern part have felt our weight before we begin the interstate capital campaign.
But Bishop, don't you think that your party may be somewhat disadvantaged if you compare with the parties that have got governors, sitting governors, senators, members of the House of Representatives at the federal level, state legislature? Because all of those persons who are in those parties who are also running for elections want to win. So they will deploy their resources, they will deploy their influence, they'll deploy whatever they can to ensure that they win. And those may count for something. Don't you feel that the NNPP, who doesn't have all of that, may be on the back foot already?
Anyways, I've never had that feeling. Well, it comes as a thought, but then when thoughts come, you do something about the thoughts and then put into action. In fact, that is one of the reasons we are pushing. It energizes us. But we know when you have some demerits or disadvantages, you want to put in so much effort to counter or overcome them. And that's what we've been achieving. There have been a lot of people who are endeared by the leadership skill of my leader, His Excellency, Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, all of these states. And we've been doing grassroots. Now, you see, leadership is what you have to talk about, the influence. And we've been able to see, to some extent, major percentage of influence cast on the electorate. So you will see surprises overturning, and people you think are not, those you think are on the ground are not on the ground. Why? Because people are tired. We are here with this simple gospel, new Nigeria. Except people are comfortable with where we are, what they are feeling about the economy, insecurity, infrastructural decay, and what have you. We are coming with freshness, fresh air to breathe. And when we begin to see overturning, and in a short while, we begin to welcome a whole lot of people who are fed up with what is happening in their parties, coming to NNPP to campaign. And then we're taking over from place to place, from city to city, from village to village, from suburb to suburb. And that's what I'm saying. Just give us a little time in the sense that elections are here. 25th of February will justify the entire news we're talking about.
All time flies, we sure know that. But let's bring in our colleague from Lagos, Ayo.
You know, one of the natural questions that come to my mind is, I mean, when you talk about the endorsement, Chamberlain, I'd like to ask the bishop, you know, how significantly you would say your party resonates with young people, with the youths generally. I ask that against the backdrop, first of all, for the fact that the former president Obasanjo addressed that letter to young people, and secondly, the fact that, I mean, we haven't, as my colleagues have said, been hearing much about the NNPP over time. So one is wondering, will the young people also be surprised?
The young people are fully involved in what we are doing. I'm young, I'm sure you do know. And that tells you how important young people are and the youths are. And our vision is to captivate them. And we have been doing that. What you people have not been seeing are the normal way of campaigning. And that is to say, going from state capital to begin to galvanize and, as it were, the crowd who may not even have their voter card, who don't even believe in you because of the kind of poverty you find. 5,000, 3,000 buys you a lot of crowd. You don't just invest in trying to get a crowd, and that will be it. We don't believe in that kind of politicking. We have administered or shared our visions, and we are still doing that. And the youth are the main grassroots we have been reaching out to. When this will be a lot clearer when we begin to do the norms, that is, haven't done our strategies, haven't affected our strategies, then we'll begin to bring the campaigning to state capitals, and then you will now begin to see the strength people are looking at, maybe about the crowd gathering. But we have the youth in our systems enough to overturn the table. We have already passed our message, and of course, you see, if we don't have the interest of the youth, how will we talk about the NACO, the WAEC, the JAM, everything going for free? We have them at heart. That's why we are saying we must educate you. We must give you all you require to ensure that you go to school. That is the starting point. And the youths who are already graduates and graduates without jobs, we're going to create different means for them to be absorbed into the work market. So we have targets for the youth, and it has been done before, not about to be begun now. That's the antecedent, the track record we are talking about. Dr. Boncosto mocked our youth in their thousands and sent them abroad on scholarship basis to become useful to themselves and the entire nation. And the youths, we have you at heart until we are able to say, yes, Wuri.
Well, Bishop, you know, it'll be quite the surprise to find that the NNPC decides, and it'll be a win for the NNPP if, for instance, the NNPP decides to align with any of the other political parties, the LP, the PDP, or the APC. It will be a surprise. And if anyone you align with wins, it's a win for the NNPP as well. So could that be one of the surprises that Nigerians should be looking forward to?
Well, like I said, we will never take the second fiddle. We are good enough to go, but our doors are open for alignment. That is to say, they coming to join. We are the strength of this election. NNPP is the party to beat. Now, why is it going to be a surprise? Because we have been underrated, undermined. You remember we just came into the scene 9 months, 10 months ago, and it takes a party that is visionary, that has got a very strong visionary leader to be able to do that. Imagine what happens when those who you think are not. And we'll be receiving calls from here and there and asking us to consider alignment. But we say, well, let's all go push. It's necessary for us to put the rightful right in the front. When we get to the bridge, we will cross it. But we are in it to win it. We're going to go for the elections. And whatever the outcome is, it would have been a very good point to start. If we win, wonderful. And that's the intention. We are not in there to back off or to now give up. It's too early to give up. We are not intending to give up. We're in it to win it. Anybody who wants to align with us comes behind us as we take the lead.
Well, you are not unaware, Bishop, that there are pontifications that there could be a second ballot, and it will be quite the first, you know, in our nation. So one wonders, is that part of the strategy of the NNPP that in the event that there is a second ballot, like a, you know, a supplementary election or whatever it is, a runoff election, is the NNPP, will the NNPP be willing to align with another political party if the NNPP, for instance, does not make it to the first, in the first election?
Anyways, we are not really ruling that one out. When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. Then we'll now sit down and count the cost. We have to tilt it to us, and we'll ensure it's one that has our philosophy, our ideology, one that is thinking the way we are thinking. Nothing wrong doing that. If there's a possible runoff, then we're able to sit down and then take stock and then know what to do next.
So essentially you're saying,
to always know, what in life is to always know what to do next.
Okay. So essentially you're saying that an alignment of sorts is on the table. It's just a matter of time.
No. We're not thinking aligning right now. We're thinking of winning straight. First ballot, NNPP comes first, and then by God's grace, the 29th of May, we are sworn in to take over the responsibility on ensuring for good governance that will be administering to Nigeria and Nigerians.
Bishop, you know, you sit in a very delicate space as a cleric to whom many people have to listen, and as a politician. And there is this popular word out there that generally politicians are an extremely optimistic set of people. And some say that politicians don't tell themselves the truth, that even though they know that they're not going to going far, they still continue to make those positive statements. So are you speaking as a politician or as a cleric that affirmatively the NNPP is on the way to Aso Rock in 2023?
My dear, why would we begin what will not end? We began it because we want to win it. We began it because we have something different perspective, different vision. We began it because people are fed up and are tired of what's happening, and we feel we can improve on the lives, secure Nigeria and unite Nigeria, and provide for them necessary amenities for them to live and have a good well-being. So it's not about being a cleric, being positive. It is a whole lot of hard work, determination, courage, competence in the leadership. That's where we are involved. Again, for me to be involved, I must have sat down. The Bible says, he that must build a tower sits down first and counts the cost. Now, getting involved simply means there's something God is up to in Nigeria. Like somebody said, God is in Nigeria because of all kinds of stuff Nigeria is passed through. Well, it's not unique to Nigeria, but then it's right for us to raise our voices, and not just raising our voices, get involved and get what is required to salvage, to rescue, to deliver Nigeria. We have all it takes to live a better life in Nigeria, and we don't sit on the fence. We have to be involved to getting sure these things are attained. That's why we are in there. We are in there not just to speak sweet words, kind words, political words, cleric words. No, facts, the reality of life is to get involved and get this thing done. So we are in it to get it done, and it shall be done.
One of the highlights is that a lot of people who went to register this time, they are so optimistic because they are of the impression that their vote will count. So that is why a lot of them, there's a surge this time because of what they think they've seen, and they think if it goes the way they think it will go, if anything else fails, at least they will take solace in the fact that their vote counts. So from what you've seen about preparations and build-up for these elections by the umpire, INEC, there are lots of questions as to recruitment of ad hoc staff, training of ad hoc staff, conduct of the electoral officers, picking up the permanent voter cards. Are you impressed so far with what you've seen?
So far, so good. So far, so good. We must learn to believe in structures, and structures must be stronger than individuals. Institutions must be stronger than individuals. And it's proven over time, some by-elections that took place, that they are credible enough, they can be trusted until otherwise proven. That's why you can find people trooping into the systems to having their voter card. Those who have never voted before, interested in voting now because of the green light they have received that their votes will count. Any reasonable person will want to be involved in a system that works. And if it's not working, if there are some gray areas, it is that they should be given all required. And I'm aware that they have been given more than enough what they require to ensure that the system succeeds during this upcoming election. So we must believe and trust the system until proven otherwise. So far, so good. Kudos to INEC.
Well, from what you've seen so far as well, would you encourage people, young people, or perhaps people in your sphere of influence, religious ones at that, to venture into politics? I know that there's usually this trepidation. They tiptoe around political issues and topics as such, so they're usually very cautious about it. So having where you are now, has your views changed as to how politics should be played and who should be in it?
Trembling, absolutely so. You see, most of the times, before now, we keep praying to God for what we are able to do for ourselves. Heaven will only help you when you get involved into things. Nobody succeeds in influencing people from the distance. Get involved. I used to have that notion that, oh, God will come down to salvage Nigeria. God will use human vessels to salvage Nigeria or changing any situation. And then we have been clamoring that prayer is not enough. What government ought to do for us, God wouldn't do that for us because he instituted the government and authority. So we have been asking, sensitizing our people to say, politics, they call it a dirty game. When I said, if it's a dirty game, I'm here with a washing machine to be able to cleanse it off. Let's get involved. When I remember, let me share this with you, it might be of great importance. On the field of play, there was this commentator who was running down everybody on the field in the field of play, and he would condemn everyone in that field. Until during the halftime, they went to find out who is this man condemning everyone that played. They found out he was a cripple, disadvantaged, couldn't play at all. Now, not to say that we have no respect for the disadvantaged, but we are saying that if you are not involved, you will not know the nitty-gritties. You will not even know how much power of prayer, how much we can involve God, how much the fear of God can do. So if you say you are the best and you are not involved, then you are an accomplice. So we must rally around and sensitize our people, educate them to understanding this is where we belong. We must get involved to salvage it or to improve on it and give us better governance and better life. So Christians are awake and much more awoken. Check out the next dispensation after these 4 years. And in between, you begin to see the full involvement of Christians because they do know to take it means you must be involved. And that is where we are now.
Are you bothered about the after effects? For instance, if there happened to be backlash, if there were information or news out there that may be negative about your party or about yourself because you're on the same ticket, so they might paint all of you with one brush, whether it's good news or bad news. And being in your position, you may not be, of course, nobody wants any negativity around themselves, but given where you are, how do you deal with such possibilities of such scenarios playing out?
Well, it's not what happens to you that defines you, it's your response. And again, even our Lord Jesus was criticized, was ostracized, that he was focused. It's not about your reputation, but your character. Reputation is people's opinion about you. Your character is you. So I am aware of all this, that it could happen. If it happens, attitude towards it, you dust off your body and move on. You are right in it until you get to the end. So the sweet, the bitter are all welcomed. They are part of the system. They are part of politicking. Aside, even normal lives, nobody gets. No, you don't attract an eraser until you make a mark. So if people don't talk about you, whether good or bad, something is wrong. In fact, if people talk about you all the time for good, then you must have compromised along the line. So it's a welcome thing any day.
All right, Bishop Isaac Dahosa, Vice Presidential Candidate of the NNPP. Thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you so much.
We're back in just a moment, still talking about the 2023 presidential elections. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sunrise City. We're following up on those issues and more. We've got two gentlemen joining us here in the studios. Nicholas Felix is the former presidential aspirant of the party himself, as well as the Deputy National Youth Coordinator of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council. And sitting right beside him is Lemon Onoja, who is a member of the Strategic Communications Department of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council as well. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy New Year to both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Good to be here.
Well, I'm not sure if any of you are happy with the recommendation, the endorsement of former President Obasanjo, not picking any of your candidates. But first of all, are endorsements a good or bad? I mean, don't your parties like endorsements? You like your party likes
naturally.
You like endorsement,
of course.
So, does it mean that this endorsement is significant?
As a two-time former president, who's governed the country for, what, 11 years, person of such international stature, you cannot say that the words that President Olusegun Obasanjo says are of no significance. Anybody who says that will be being naive, right? You cannot say that. He's a man of, and who, on the platform of our party, offered to Nigerians and Nigeria a significant amount of growth and development. You can't, there are certain things that are incontrovertible. So you have to take it that way. But then there are two things that you must also consider from his letter. There was an objective part based on fact, irrefutable figures, irrefutable reality of the Nigerian citizen. There's that part. And then there's the subjective part, which is based on President Obasanjo's personal opinion, which he has in the past also swayed in a different way. So if you look at it, there are two things you can take from that letter. And in our political party, in the PDP, in our presidential campaign, what we've done, and I will explain that in the course of this interview, is take what is important from that letter, which is irrefutable fact, objective irrefutable fact.
What are those anyways?
Objective irrefutable fact is that Nigeria has never been this badly run. Objective irrefutable fact is that the reality of the average Nigerian has never been this bad. We have record unemployment, record insecurity, record lack of access to healthcare, record lack of access to education. We have youth unemployment at 52% 2 years ago. Unemployment, general unemployment at 33% 2 years ago. The unemployment figures are so bad that the government is unwilling to release new, updated unemployment figures. Our country has never been this bad.
The government is really unwilling, or the NBS is really?
The NBS, whichever one you pick, right? Our country has never been so badly divided along religious, ethnic, and tribal lines. If you look at it, never before in the reality of the average Nigerian has the future been this bleak, been this terrible, been this painful.
You know,
and when you take that objective reality, and it's not just President Obasanjo that says it, every global standard of measurement, every global index points to that reality, that Nigeria has never been this badly run. That is objective fact.
You know, so while, because you're talking about facts, I mean, we can always have the APC respond to how they see, you know, the facts, especially because they are the government in power. But what I'd like to, you know, ask you is whether this is happening in isolation. We've been told about how even the world economy is not doing well. The IMF, or is it the World Bank, is predicting that even this year, about a third, if not two-thirds of the world economy will be seeing a recession. We're seeing what is happening in places like the UK, the US. China is no longer pursuing a zero COVID policy. There's still countries that are still trying to recover from COVID. So when we talk about all of this happening, can we say that this is happening to Nigeria in isolation, or Nigeria is also experiencing what the rest of the world is currently experiencing?
Well, you can always situate contextually what goes on in Nigeria in a global paradigm. But don't always, we can also do that contextually the other way as well. And I'll say two things. One, Nigeria's economic security and all the issues about which I just spoke didn't start with COVID. They started in 2015. Immediately, this government was elected and got into power. 2 quarters later, we were in a recession.
No, but you know that is not exactly correct, because you also know that that recession was predicted even before the administration left. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala,
no, she said we were going to have tough times. She didn't say that we're not going to have growth.
Yes, and it did seem that the indicators were already there.
You've now entered the realm of conjecture. When you say it seemed, you've entered the realm of conjecture. But can I finish the thought, please?
You may. I just want to bring it back to the fact that that was already, the indicators were already there as early as 2014.
Okay, but you now, and assuming without conceding, because we had more than 2% growth in the quarter just before the Buhari administration took over. You had unemployment at 9.6%, single-digit figures. You had inflation at 9.6%. You had unemployment also at single-digit figures. So when you say that, oh, things were bad.
Single digits or double digits? I know they were trying to get into single digits.
9.6%, I'm very sure. You can fact check me, I'm very sure. Right? Now, all that presents that, oh, things were going to be difficult. There were going to be a few, there was going to be a few bumps on the road. But they were being better managed than we've seen post-2015. That is one. And then the second thing, even in the middle of the COVID recession, we're seeing oil-producing companies make massive profits. This is the first time in Nigerian history.
Which year is this?
This year. Saudi Arabia just did a budget excess of $25 billion. Right? Just there. There is an ongoing oil boom occasioned by the Russia-Ukraine war. This is the first time in national history that there is an oil boom and Nigeria is not benefiting anything from it in any manner whatsoever. When you put all those things together, it goes back to what the objective part of President Obasanjo's letter is. Nigeria has never been this badly run.
Before you go to the subjective part, I mean, I have to bring it here. I raised that MBS part because time and again we ask them and they always tell us MBS is an independent body. They do what they have to do based on their figures, so they publish it. So, Dr. Felix?
Once again, good morning and Happy New Year. And Happy New Year to Nigerians. Let me just quickly encourage everyone out there that this is a new year, and the youths, keep your hustle game on, and hope is coming. I believe after February 25th, we'll begin to bring in new air. So every youth out there, it's time to keep your hustle game on. I think your question was about the endorsement of Olusegun Obasanjo.
And the part that he says that the facts that are, at least he said, of objective facts of what the former president did say.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, like you said, endorsements are very much okay. Every one vote you get is enough to be excited. For me, I see his endorsement as one vote. Obasanjo has one vote, just like every other Nigerian has one vote. It's not, his endorsement didn't really cause any uproar in our camp. We don't see it,
It didn't. You've released a very strong statement.
Yes, of course we have to.
Countering that.
Yes.
Not just your party and the camp of your presidential candidate, but also the government has also released a statement.
Yes, I mean, of course they're going to release a statement. My point is,
they're not going to. They have.
Yes, my point is, in 2019, the candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, was the vice president.
Yeah, but the point of that is that it did shake the party.
It didn't shake nothing. It was the vice presidential candidate.
Why would all those statements be released from the federal government, from your party, if those statements it meant nothing?
It was the vice presidential candidate to Atiku These are joint forces together. And the same Obasanjo endorsed them. Did they win the election? The answer is no. So right now, because you have to understand, our Labour Party is the sister party to PDP. So the two of them put together in 2019 could not do any harm, even while they were running against the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari. Now we have a new candidate. So we are not moved by that. To me, I see it as one vote. We respect him as an elder statesman who has led the country. But the question you ask yourself, if you look at the national anthem, the labels of our heroes past, are we going to add him to that group of category? Is he one of our heroes past? For me as a youth, will I consider him a hero to be excited that he has endorsed anybody? So we're moving on with the campaign.
You don't consider him a hero?
I'm asking, should I, as an individual?
So I'm asking you that question. I want the answer.
I don't know how many political heroes are considered in Nigeria, because I don't know what they have done to give people like us hope. So he has done great, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I will add him to that hero's past according to our national anthem. So I'm not moved. We are not moved. We are moving on with our campaign, because if the same endorsement did not produce any result, joint forces together in 2019, I wonder what...
So 2019 might be a different scenario. I mean, as Mr. Lemoja did acknowledge, there are parts of the letter which, some people will consider facts. I mean, in terms of what they're... Even your party, by the very slogan, hope, you have to ask, questions as to hope for what? I mean,
renewed hope.
Exactly. You're even renewing the hope. There are questions as to, if things were so great, why should we be hopeful? People are hopeful where things are bad, and then, they're almost entering a state of despair, and they say, no, don't lose hope. It is not all lost. That's when hope comes in. So there are big questions as to even the slogan that your own party has picked for its campaign. But let me ask you, as the last part of his response, that there are parts of, our reality that, can be, situated within an international context. But there are parts of our reality that are self-inflicted and, are just peculiar to us. One of which he cited is the, oil prices. The oil prices boom, which, many oil-producing countries are currently experiencing. Nigeria is currently benefiting from the oil price, but it's having almost no effect, at least where we ordinary, let me not put myself there, but where ordinary Nigerians, everyday Nigerians can feel it. It doesn't seem that the everyday Nigerian can feel that there is currently an oil boom happening internationally right now. Do you think that is how, that is part of what, that points to how your party is currently managing the country's resources?
Now, forgive me for always going this route. One of the reasons I try not to focus more on the current administration is because we have a few months for this administration to be over. And like I've always cited, there are a few areas I believe this administration will have done more, which they have not. Even though I'm a member of the APC, I recognize that fact, which is the area of security. But what we must understand, a new administration is coming in. I think that's why we're here. We're talking about the next election, which is in about 52 or 53 days. And the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there are a lot of things he's going to change. He's a man, I believe, with great vision for this nation. This is politics. Even in America, as great as the economy is, $21 trillion economy, bigger than the entire Africa. When it's political time, they say the same thing. People complain about unemployment. People complain about insecurity, even in America. People complain about everything. So when we are speaking political terms, we're here talking about how bad this economy has been. I'm sure even after this administration and unemployment goes down, and we begin to feel all the great impact of having been an oil-producing nation, the next election, people are still going to complain. My point is, a new administration is coming in, and that's why we have the slogan, hope. Even billionaires always need hope.
We cannot...
Billionaires always want hope. So talking about hope has nothing to do with just being poor.
We can't dismiss.
Yes.
I really wish we could, but we can't dismiss the fact that your party is currently the party in power. I mean, when we look at what is happening in the United States, for instance, I mean, when the Democrats are there and they're looking for re-election, they're campaigning based on what it is that the Democrats have achieved. They cannot say, no, the administration of this one is going, you still have to be, elect another Democrat. You have to campaign based on what it is that your party has been able to achieve through the government in power. So the question is, What precisely, why should Nigerians trust your party once more to be able to deliver it, knowing that, you know, it campaigned on 3 things. Security, you say you acknowledge that your party hasn't done as well as it ought to in the area of security. If it said it was going to fix security since 2015, why should they trust that it's going to do any better this time around?
The administration has done well in infrastructure. In my own book, this administration has not sold anything out. If you're telling us to go back to an era where all what we have were privatized, we used to have NEPA, we don't have any. We used to have the telecommunication system. Everything has been sold out. I see privatization as being and selling our properties. And to even think about the fact that we're talking about going back to the same administration that sold all of these things. You know, I was...
you see privatization as selling as a property?
Yes, I see it as that. I mean, I'm speaking personally. Now, let's look at the rally the PDP candidate had in Lagos. He was talking about empowering the youth. And I heard him say this, that people ask him, where are you going to get the money from? The $10 billion you want to give to the youth. He said, if I privatize our oil company, if I privatize it, I will get $10 billion. I was outraged watching it on TV. You mean for us, you want to sell the last thing that we have for you to be able to get $10 billion to empower the youth? I see that as very insulting for me as a young person who has hope in this country. Now, you don't tell us we want to go back to this era. Yes, there are things that need to be done, but there are no more bombings all over. If you recall, there used to be suicide bombing everywhere, whereby you're walking, you're looking at your back, you're in a church, the churches can't even gather, the pastor have to be the one to give signal if we have to run, but at least that has been taken care of. Yes, there's still problem in the insecurity, which we must improve. Now, every nation fights insecurity.
Churches did gather.
Yes, every nation fights insecurity. A lady was just killed by police in Lagos. That we experience in America all the time. These issues of insecurity, they're all over. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm saying we are living on earth, we are not in heaven. There are issues. And that's why when we come to campaign, we want to address issues. And every administration that comes in, do their best to make sure they handle the part that they can. So, but it's not a yardstick for us to go back to this past administration. Let's not even think about that.
You know, I don't think he even knows what he's campaigning for. He doesn't know the party he's campaigning for. Straight away.
Why what do you mean? I don't know.
Because I will tell you why. I'll tell you why I say you don't know your party. Because we're smack in the middle. The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the current Vice President, acknowledges that the oil company about which you're outraged that is going to be sold, or that we propose to sell, needs to be sold. The Vice President acknowledges that.
Just the way you have sold every other thing.
Hold on. You're saying that hold on. I listened to you now. But I did listen.
He didn't interrupt you, actually.
I didn't interrupt you.
Don't worry. You will speak after that.
Hold on.
When I come on these people, I try not to be
Let's make it decent and in order.
Politician.
You know that principle, so don't worry. You will speak afterwards. Go ahead.
Your political party admits what my political party proposed 4 years ago, that sell the national company. In fact, as part of the implementation of the new Petroleum Industry Act, there is an ongoing shoddy, clandestine sale of NNPC going on. So when you come and you say you're outraged that we say we should sell it in a more transparent manner, but your political party is doing it in a shoddy, clandestine manner, you don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean clandestine sale of NNPC? If the PIA Act is there, there for everybody to see.
Listen. Our party proposes something, and we propose it off the basis of certain things. NNPC is a morass of corruption, right? You haven't had NNPC contribute anything to the national coffers this year, almost all year, for at least 6 or 7 months.
They gave a reason.
Hold on. We'll go on further. I'll give you an example. Last year, in 2021, you spent $1.5 billion on turnaround maintenance for the Port Harcourt refinery. It still hasn't refined a single barrel of crude oil. And we're proposing, you know what? Why should we be spending all this money from the government? Sell it. Let private investors do with it whatever they will. How does anybody get outraged by that? And to come down to the finer points, I don't think anybody coming on national television and saying, oh, the privatization of telecoms is a bad thing and outrages him is a very decent, and I'm trying very hard to be respectful, thing to say. Because what was the contributions of the telecom sector to GDP in the year 2021? Potentially, and if I'm not mistaken, 18.9% was what your telecom sector contributed to GDP in 2021. For you to come and say that you're outraged, I don't think you're indicting your party.
We'll come to Dr. Felix when we return in just a moment. It's break time, actually, so we will be back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Well, Dr. Felix, we're going to get a response to what he says. He doesn't understand why you will be outraged, because privatization did bring us to where we are in telecoms these days.
Now, what is the difference when you talk about telecom? When did GSM began? So if you're comparing it to the age where the only means we had was just landline, we had no GSM that has, revolutionized the world today, I think it's quite different. My point is, for us as youth, we cannot allow these politicians to sell everything. Very soon, we'll be on sale.
Look, so and China will can sell some things, not everything.
Yes, and China will be coming to buy us very soon. If you're telling me privatizing an oil company is the only way you're going to get money to finance the youth, and as a youth...
So, but for telecoms, do you think it's good?
I don't think anything should be sold. Has it done us anywhere?
Telecoms?
We were told. Now, let's look at the general picture. How much was it sold for? That's the next question. Who bought it? You see, this guy's, he wants to, the candidate of the PDP wants to enrich his friends. He wants to sell everything in Nigeria and make Tom his friends.
Is that what he said?
He said that, yes, that what was wrong for his friends to be rich. My point is, we cannot afford.
So you don't like your friends to be rich? Now, let me know now, so so your friends can know where you are. You stand in this matter.
Not at the expense of our great nation. Yes, my friends can be rich. They can go and work hard, start their business and do the needful. Not for at the expense of our great nation. My point is, you look at the NEPA. We used to call it NEPA. I did my IT with NEPA. It was privatized in the so-called sense that there will be lights. Now, do we have light? How many? Which state or which city can celebrate that for the past 7 days there hasn't been any light failure? It has not done us any good. My point is, the only thing we have left, please, in the name of God, don't sell it. That's what we are saying.
I'm very sorry, yeah. And this is typical of the APC. What we hear here, rhetoric. It's anecdotes. There's no real solution in which he's not speaking about anything that is solution-based to Nigeria's problems. And speaking, I'll just piggyback off power that he raises. My candidate says the simple thing. You know what? Where is the biggest problem in power that we have at the moment? It is the size of your transmission grid. It is too small. We're generating more power than we transmit. So we propose a very simple solution. Break up the transmission grid, regionalize it, right? Bring private sector investment into it so that you can expand it. And then, if you generate more power, you'll be able to transmit more power, which means you'll be able to distribute more power. My candidate proposes, another thing, we don't have enough meters in the electricity system. You know what? Let's get people metered so that more than 50% of the power that we transmit doesn't waste. It isn't unbilled for. So we're speaking solutions. Right. But the APC...
What do you think about...
His candidate was the vice president from 1920. They had the opportunity to do this.
I would like to respond to this particular point.
They had the opportunity.
Can you tell us what you think should be done or what your party intends to do with transmission?
Now, we need to create more avenue for that. The issue of transmission is something that needs to be looked into. I believe, this is just from my personal opinion, I believe it's the political will. Not that we don't know what to do. Not that we don't have engineers and people who can get this job done. I believe there are people who are profiting from this dilemma, from this pain that we are in. We need somebody with a political will to get the job done. It's not that we don't know. We need somebody who will damn the consequences. who will look into the face of these people who are profiting off the pain of Nigerians.
How exactly?
My candidate is that man who will get the job done.
How?
Because the candidate of the PDP was there before. For 8 years.
He spoke about the how. So we need to hear
for 8 years, we need to look into it and be able to create more line to be able to transmit. We generate, but we cannot transmit. It's simple. We have engineers who can do that. What we are saying is we need the political will to be able to do it. And that man, that is what we are looking for.
That's generic.
The solution has been out there. The solution is out there. But doing it, 1999 to 2007, they had the solution. But they did not do it. The question is why? Are you just knowing the solution?
Well, your party hasn't done it either now.
Okay, are you just knowing the solution? My candidate hasn't been in power. My candidate hasn't been in power. My candidate hasn't been in power. He's running for the first time to become president of this great country.
But he's running on
he's going to do it.
Your party
he's
is
running on the
party.
He's going to be the leader of the party, and he's going to change the game. That's what we're here to.
Is it that you're not proud of the party's achievements so far?
Do you know how much I spent in nomination form? I knew about APC before I went there. Why would I not be proud of the party? Okay. Which party do you want to compare it with? PDP?
So I'd
like to very quickly respond.
Okay, well, Ayo's going to come in right after that. I don't know if your question is directed at you, but go ahead before he comes.
I would say this, yeah? When he speaks again about... history is a good thing, and people should study history. You say my candidate was in power between 1999 and 2007. What we propose for transmission is the last of a triangle that resolves Nigeria's power problems that started during his tenure in office. It started there. The process for unbundling Nigeria's power sector started while he was in office. Okay. He's saying we've done two phases. We've privatized generation, we've privatized distribution, privatized transmission, so that you've completed the 3 phases. And then you will have an improvement. My candidate speaks with a plan. I can speak about my candidate's plan because he has a plan. You can't because there isn't. It's really that simple.
You want to respond to that?
Let's go to the next question.
Okay, Ayo, go ahead, please. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me stick with Mr. Onoja for a bit. To the very issue that you just concluded now, let me begin from there. You're speaking about the fact that, you know, your candidate has a plan to continue something that started while he was in office. And if the plan was for that, the intention was for the plan that he initiated as, you know, while in office as vice president was to be sustained, how come the successive candidates, successive governments of the PDP didn't continue that plan, if indeed it was a plan?
There were many legal and regulatory issues related to the power sector, for instance. And one of the things that many people forget about where we came from in 1999 is that we didn't have the legal and the regulatory framework to resolve a lot of these issues. There were legal frameworks relating to the power sector that required you to pass laws, that required you to completely redraft policy, that required you to terminate employment, pay off benefits. There were all sorts of issues that were related to that, and it was always going to take time. The Obasanjo-Atiku administration, between 1999 and 2007, eventually got there and started setting out the framework. The Jonathan administration took it a step further, completed 2 parts of the 3 phases of unbundling, when they unbundled generation and distribution, right? And then we have all these GENCOs, the 5 GENCOs and the 11 DISCOs, I think it is. It is the transmission phase now to put us firmly on the path to having sustainable power for everybody. We're proposing enter the transmission phase and resolve the difficulties that are there. Once you resolve that difficulty, you've completed the last phase of a roadmap that would have been completed if we didn't have the last 7.5 years of confusion, of a lack of direction, of bad, sheer, terrible governance and, confusion that we've had from the APC. So there was always a plan in place. We're just saying complete phase 3 of that plan.
The government of the PDP government before this government was as effective as you say it was. I wonder why people would have voted them out at the time, because it was for the same issue of bad governance that Nigerians said we had enough. But let me come back to Mr. Felix. Now, some of the issues that you have raised, Mr. Felix, now there are those who are wondering if indeed, according to the question my colleague asked you the other time, if indeed you are persuaded about the fact that your candidate has what it takes, because much of what you're saying, my colleague has been asking you the how question. It's not just whether or not is the issue now, it's the how you're going to do it. The challenge Nigerians have had over time is people make promises and speak on behalf of their principles the way you're doing now, and they don't tell us how. It's even a little more curious because you were at some point yourself a presidential contender, aspirant, and so one wonders, if indeed you had become the candidate, what would have been your personal roadmap to resolving this particular issue of electricity that we're talking about?
Yeah, we all know the problem with our electricity. We are generating, but we cannot transmit. So the issue now is to look into the transmission and be able to transmit what we generate. Several times we've had the national grid breakdown, and we need to be able to come up with strategies and plan to be able to transmit the issue with electricity. Again, it's not something that you can come on national TV and give you all the detailed breakdown, the engineering involved. But we all know the problem is the problem of transmission, and that's what my candidate is going to address. The PDP had 16 years used to be planning to do one simple thing for 16 years. We don't need such administration or such party anymore. We need somebody like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is going to be able to look into the issue of transmission and be able to address it head on. Why is it that we can generate and yet we cannot transmit? And be able to raise up a committee that will look into it and address that issue.
Still talking about the energy sector, is this vexed matter, which of course, you know, your partner right there also spoke to, the fact that the government of the APC has spent not a little bit of money to try to resolve the refineries that are not functional. And there are those who, you know, jocularly say turn around maintenance without any turnaround. And that money has been spent is not the issue now. The issue is, why should Nigerians trust the APC one more time with the coffers of the nation when the investments that have been made have not yielded desired results?
Nigerians should trust the APC because of the candidate that we have. We have a man who has built a system while he was governor in Lagos. Apparently, he's the only candidate that people still refer to what he did as governor. We have the candidate of the PDP, who was vice president for 7 years, but now all they have to tell us is plan, plan, plan. But for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he was governor, he put a system in place which is still working even after years of leaving office. So that's what Nigeria should look at. Who is this man? He's a man with vision. He's a man with a political will to get the job done. He's a unifier. He's somebody when he handles
Mr. Felix,
the economy,
we hear you on that, but
so
you are
not
specifically speaking to the issue that I raised about the investments made in the petroleum sector for the refineries to function, and they have not functioned until now. Is there a reason you're aware of to say, okay, Nigerians, this didn't work because of this, but if the administration, the next administration is, the next APC administration comes on board, this is what they will do to ensure that the investments that have been made are justified?
Our refinery did not packed up last year. These refineries has been down. Apparently, the PDP administration did nothing about it. This current administration, I don't know the effort they put into making sure our refineries are working. But this issue did not begin with Muhammadu Buhari. That's one thing we must understand. That some of the issues we are dealing with did not start, insecurity did not start with Muhammadu Buhari. Insecurity started with the PDP administration, where they were bombing all over the place. But what we are saying, the new administration
We have to focus on this issue to address it. I would love to come on national TV and be crying over speed milk, but a new administration is coming. Our candidate has the ability to keep this refinery going. That's what we should focus on, not just crying over for the past 8 years. Apparently, PDP had had 16 years, could not do the same thing we're expecting the APC to do in just 8 years.
Well, you know, Mr. Felix, it's very interesting that you put it that way because, I mean, as an entrepreneur, when you want to employ someone, you look at the person's credentials, an individual. But now we're not only looking at the credentials of the individual, we're looking at the credentials of the individual through its recruitment agency, which is the APC. So we cannot excuse the platform of the APC and look just at the credentials of the candidate. But let me come to Mr. Onoja. Well, you've spoken about this the other time as well and say that, you know, the APC has spent X amount of money in dollars and they haven't done anything. A whopping $1.6 billion, which was at the time about 251 billion naira, was voted for turnaround maintenance of the 4 refineries across the country by the end of 2014. Turnaround maintenance without any turnaround. Why should Nigerians trust the PDP again?
If you recall, your statement says it was voted at the end of 2014. 2 months later, the PDP lost an election. 5 months later, the PDP left office. That program was not seen through. Very simply put, if we'd seen it through, we probably wouldn't be here. Remember also that our position since 2019 has also been, you know what? Instead of putting another 1.5 billion into the Port Harcourt refinery or any other refinery, take that money, put it in healthcare, put it in education, put it in infrastructure. Take this loss-making, loss-accruing institution, and it's not an asset. That's a loss. That's an operational loss, year on year. Take it, privatize it, take your hands out of it, regulate it, accrue taxes that you can also add to. So when Mr. Nicholas Felix spoke about where will our candidate get money to give young people to start businesses, it is from places like that. Cut your losses. When you cut the losses that you're making, make whatever capital you can make from the sale of that. Again, I struggle to call it an asset because it makes losses year on year, and then remove your hands, earn taxes from it. So to directly answer your question, it was at the end of 2014. 2 months later, PDP lost an election. Or was it 2 or 3 months later? PDP lost an election. 5 months later, PDP left government. And as such, it couldn't see that program through. It's very simply put.
2014. Even under the watch of your principal as vice president, a lot of money was equally spent to try to make the refineries work so that Nigeria does not import finished petroleum products. You know, but that's just beside the point.
Remember that at the end of the Obasanjo-Atiku administration, that asset, those refineries had been sold. Remember that at the end of the Obasanjo-Atiku administration, we're coming again in 2019 to a program, to a policy that my candidate recommended and was part of the implementation of in 2007. What do you call that typically in political parlance? That is vision. Where the rest of the country is catching up now in 2019, in 2022, to a policy that my candidate said in 2007. How many years later? That is vision.
So now,
is vision.
No doubt, you know, that Nigeria has a lot of challenges on its hands, and successive governments have only tried to scratch the surface of every problem. Successive governments have had such serious issues that when that government is in office, and this has been my own personal experience as a journalist, when that government is in office, people are saying, oh, well, the previous government was better. We didn't know it was going to be this bad. That speaks to systems that could not sustain development. Now, how do we ensure, and that's for you and for Mr. Felix as well, how do we ensure that the systems that we have right now will be strengthened to support the structures and the policies that your candidate is going to come up with. I ask that advisedly because your candidate is not going to be the one to go to the port. He's not going to be the one to go to the border towns. He's not going to be the one to go to the various ministries, departments, and agencies. He's going to have to recruit like 1,000 people on that one ticket to ensure that the heads of ministries, departments, and agencies of government do the needful to execute these policies. So, how do we ensure that the systems of government will be able to hold up against any pressure that will make sure that they don't, whatever it is that they're doing doesn't work?
There are two things to directly answer your question. One, speaking in sometime in 2019, it was, former President Olusegun Obasanjo spoke about my candidate's ability to put in place the sorts of teams that will lead Nigeria properly. He spoke of my candidate as a team leader and spoke about his ability to find competent people who have the capacity and the character to be able to effectively lead Nigeria. If we remember, between 1999 and 2007, my candidate demonstrated the ability to unearth competent people with character and capacity from across the world and to put them into, to recommend them and then give them the, adequate political will to be able to perform creditably well in office. And so in that, I speak about two things. The first thing being the ability to identify people who should fill office. And then the second thing is the ability to give them, the political backing, the political confidence that they need from their leader to be able to perform do the things that they require in office.
Which is largely, I think, what your party too has marketed, that your candidate has the ability to identify. But I want to quickly, read something from the former president's letter. It says, I became head of state at 39, and at 42, I had retired into the farm. When it was considered necessary, I was drafted back into active political life after 20 years of interregnum. I came back at 62, and by 70, I was on my way out. And he also mentioned other leaders. He says, the vigor, energy, agility, dynamism, and outreach that the job of leadership of Nigeria requires at the very top may not be provided as a septuagenarian or older. I know that from personal experience, and it is glaring out of our current experiences. Otherwise, we will be fed with the president says, and you will neither see nor hear him directly as we should. Now, that speaks to both the candidates of the APC and the PDP and their fears. I mean, you have your turn. Let me start with you, Mr. Felix. This is something a lot of Nigerians, really fear with the candidate of your party. I mean, at least he celebrated 70 openly. Some argue that he could be older. But from the experience of someone who's been there, he believes that, neither of the candidate of the APC nor the PDP has the agility and the vigor which the office requires.
Now, if I may quickly dive to the question regarding system. I'm so glad he brought that question on because that's something now we need in Nigeria. A system where the new administration, regardless of your political party, will be able to run on. Nigerians lack that system now. That's why you hear somebody like Peter Obi will say, I saved $200 million when I was leaving. I saved this amount of money. And the new administration, whatever they did with the money, we don't see the effect. So I would rather you spend the money than even saving it. There is no system. The only candidate who we can boldly say has put a system while he was a governor is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. For example, let me explain something that he brought up.
I want you to quickly speak to. I want you to quickly speak to it because while you always refer to what has happened in Lagos, he's not the same age that he was when he was governor of Lagos.
I'll go there. For example, my candidate has proposed a credit system which Nigeria don't have. Do you know that is the foundation and the bedrock of American economy? If you take out the credit system today from America, the America will crumble. People have houses today, is the credit system. People can buy cars today, is the credit system. Now, they are not, it's not everything you can do in a state. You have to make it national. You can't have a credit system in a particular state. these are some of the things he's mentioning. We need
so my first question, we need to go.
Now, our candidate just got back from London, and as of yesterday is in Kano, having a meeting today in Kano. Tomorrow, we're going to be having a rally in Kano. On Friday, we're going to my state, Edo State. For the entire month, we have rallies planned. He's going to be attending all the rallies. Now, I understand that this is democracy. We went into the primaries, 23 candidate aspirants. 1,271 delegates thought otherwise. 1,271 delegates said, this is the man we want. We know he's capable to lead our party, and they voted for him. And if 1,271 delegates see that, we are rallying behind our candidate. For me, like I've always said, he's strong enough to get the job done, and we're all here to support.
One of the things that part of the letter spoke about, which Mr. Felix has demonstrated repeatedly here, is directly avoiding accountability to the Nigerian people. And it's the reason why Mr. Felix is not answering the questions. Their candidates, and you people, Channels TV has held a town hall meeting.
Can you quickly answer the question?
The question is, my candidate is available. Not only is he strong in body, he's also proposing very powerful ideas to reform, recover Nigeria, and place us firmly back on the path to growth and development. My candidate is speaking to the Nigerian people, and he's not doing so just at rallies. He's doing so at town hall meetings. He's doing so in the media. He's doing so everywhere that it's possible. My candidate is not like another candidate that is completely hiding away from the media and has said he's not going to do certain sorts of interrogations and he's not going to attend intellectual spaces, because he knows that if he appears there, the vacuity, the emptiness, the hot air that is his candidature will immediately be shown up.
All right,
my candidate is in front of the Nigerian people.
We need to go.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. But, we did check that inflation figure which you spoke about, and it was published in 2014 that inflation rate for 10 months was consistently high, but all highs were in single digits. So in that context, it was consistently high, just as it also was high. It is high now.
9.6%. On the 2nd of June.
All highs were in single digits.
Okay, fine.
But they were, for 10 months, consecutively, consistently high. Gentlemen, we need to go. Thank you both for coming on. Ilemon Onaja, member, Strategic Communications Committee of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council, and Dr. Nicholas Felix, a former presidential aspirant himself, and now the Deputy National Youth Coordinator of APC's Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you very much indeed for coming on, both of you. And
thank you for
we'll always be for having best. That is the show today. We thank you for watching as well. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Osal.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Aya Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.